Two things are true of all arguments, big or small. One, we all have them. And two, we all want to be right. So what are we arguing about? Relationship experts say we argue about nothing. We argue about the most ridiculous things, like whose turn it is to load the dishwasher, or which way to turn when we're in the car, because these arguments actually represent deeper things happening beneath the surface. I'm a clinical psychotherapist, so I professionally help people navigate arguments in order to find more love and connection and meaning in their relationships. In other words, you could think of me as a well-paid referee. Today, I'd like to share with you a secret to winning these arguments that can not only change the dynamic of our arguments, but bring more love and connection into our relationships. Now, in order to do that, I need to tell you a story. This is a story about a personal argument from one of my most regular clients, and that is myself. So, one of the biggest arguments I've ever had in my life was with my husband over a broken iPhone. And this phone, it wasn't just broken, it was shattered. It had glass like poking out. It was totally beyond repair. And like most people, we love our phones, but this argument was out of proportion to the situation. So he was arguing that I was angry and that I had broken this phone on purpose. He also felt that I should fix it immediately. I was hurt and offended that he could possibly think I would break my phone on purpose. And I also had this sort of oddly frugal quirk and was trying to argue that I could continue to navigate the phone by just going around the shards of glass in order to save some money. So after a while, I kind of gave in and decided I'd go to the Apple store and just get it checked out. And while I was driving, I was feeling sad and angry, and most of all, lonely. And I had tears coming down my face. And when I was driving, I saw someone I knew. And I didn't even know her very well, but I was so excited to tell her my side of the story that I took my car and I drove up over the curb into the grass. And I rolled down my window. Now, mind you, I'm still behind this poor woman, and I shouted at her. And I said, "My husband and I just got into a fight. I broke my phone, and he thinks I should fix it." And I sat back, and I just waited for the understanding and the vote that I would be right. And as I was waiting, I looked over and I saw a confused look on her face, maybe slightly terrified, that I almost ran her and her dog over with my car, and we didn't even know each other that well. And she looked at me and she goes, "Well, yeah, but you probably should fix the phone though, right?" And I took my car and I got back on the road, I rolled the window up, and I just drove away feeling so ridiculous because I realized our argument wasn't really about the phone. And it never really is it? So lucky for us, this was not the last of our arguments, and we had won ourselves front row tickets to couples therapy. So I get this a lot, but yes, therapists need therapy too. Why do you think we're always so fascinated with everybody else? We are always trying to fix ourselves. So there we argued some more, but I learned something in the process that changed my life and the way that I argued forever. And that is the secret to winning arguments. Now, in order to understand how to win arguments, we need to first back up and understand, why are we fighting in the first place? What is really going on? And what relationships are we talking about? So today we're talking about mutual relationships. They could be between partners, it could be a couple, but it could be between families and friends. But this isn't really applying to volatile comments left on social media between strangers, or if you're angry with some celebrity that you don't know. This is about two people that are engaged in a relationship. So why are we arguing in these relationships? It all boils down to this. People have a basic need for love and connection. Think about it for a second. From the moment you were born, your survival depended entirely upon someone else, someone to care for you, hold you, feed you, protect you. And this isn't unique to you. This is true of all mankind. This has also been true since the beginning of time. It is something that we have not evolved from, which means your brain is very aware of this need for love and connection. In fact, without you realizing it, your brain is constantly scanning for threats of danger or harm that may come your way, including the threat of not having love and connection. In other words, rejection or loneliness. And if you're tempted to think, well, sure, that's for babies. I can clothe myself and I can feed myself and I don't need that anymore. I'm here to tell you that we need that connection just as much as adults as we age, if not even more. In fact, we're seeing research emerge from places like Harvard and Brigham Young University that are showing us that loneliness has health risks. And these aren't just small health risks. These are equal to smoking and obesity as we age. Further research from the UK shows us that loneliness can actually increase your average risk for coronary heart disease and stroke by 50%. And these are the leading health burdens in our higher income countries. See, that is what's happening in your brain. Your brain is very aware that we need love and connection for our survival, even as we get older and we feel more independent. In fact, when you have this moment where your brain is scanning for the threats, when you have an argument, what can happen is, deep below the surface, your brain is trying to see if this argument may lead to rejection. Now, if your brain detects there is a threat to rejection, it can trigger what's called an amygdala hijack, otherwise known as the fight or flight response. And what happens in an amygdala hijack is your brain is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and it makes your heart beat faster, your lungs fill up quickly, blood is sent to your muscles. It's all designed to help you protect your body, but ultimately to move. Also, what happens in an amygdala hijack is your short-term memory is impaired. It may be difficult to think clearly is another way to think of it. So it's hard to stay on point, and you may even lash out and say things that you maybe wouldn't otherwise want to say. All these things are beautifully designed and very helpful to our survival. And they're very helpful if you're running away from a lion. But it's not so helpful in a verbal argument with someone you care about. See, that's what was happening to me with the iPhone. While on my conscious mind, I thought I was trying to save some money or save my pride, deep below the surface, my brain had detected my husband as a threat and that he may reject me and leave me and otherwise threaten my survival. And this isn't unique to me. If you think about it in your life, how often has it felt like a life or death situation when you're in an argument? See, I wasn't in peril, and my husband wasn't about to leave me. That wasn't the reality. But I'm telling you, it felt real. It actually felt like I might die if I admitted I was wrong. And this is true for all of us. So when we detect that something could be wrong, we panic, and we move away from connection. What our brain ultimately wants is love and connection. So, in my personal therapy, I was able to experiment with reacting to situations in different ways other than just being defensive. I learned to calm myself down in this panic. So I was able to do something other than just be defensive and be fight or flight. So I decided to practice something, the craziest thing I could think of, and I just admitted he was right. I said, "You're right. I was angry, and I broke the phone, and I may have a tendency to break things on purpose when I'm angry, so I can see why you think I broke it." And I also said, I'm grateful that you had me go fix the phone. The guys at the Apple store did agree that it wasn't functional, and it was good that I fixed it, so I'm glad that I did that. Thank you. And while these words may sound simple and they may sound easy to say, I'm telling you, it felt like I had lowered my shield of defense in a battle, and then I readied myself for an attack. And I was prepared for rejection. But what happened was so interesting. My husband's shoulders softened. His face relaxed. He turned towards me and he goes, that's okay. I'm not perfect either. I'll work on it. And I was shocked. And a flood of happy feelings came over me, love and joy and relief. But most of all, I felt connected. And in order to make sure this wasn't just some freak coincidence, or maybe he was just that in love with his phone, that I decided I was going to make this an experiment in my life. So I started trying it with anyone I could, and anyone I argued with my mom, with my friends, with my clients, with anyone in my family, and the same results happened every time. The arguments led towards connection. The secret is to agree. And here's why it works. When you say, I agree with you, or I see your point, you give the other person's brain an opportunity to relax because you're not the enemy anymore. And if their brain can relax, they can move from a primal state of fighting or running away from you to a more complex thinking system, which allows you to listen, validate, understand, and connect. So at this point, you may be wondering a couple of things. You may be wondering, okay, that sounds nice, but what if I just can't agree? I don't think you understand my husband. I just can't. Should I lie? Should I just fake it? Should I play the game? And this is a great question. I get a lot. And the answer is no. This is not about being manipulative or playing a game. This is about genuinely finding something to agree on. I would encourage you to find something, anything to agree on, even if it just means that you validate the other person's feelings. Now, the other question you may be thinking, and you're probably too polite to say, is, wait a minute. I thought you were going to teach us the secret to winning every argument. It sounds like you're telling me to let the other person win the argument. To which I say, you're right. That may not seem like winning at first, but remember, why do you really want to be right in the first place? Your brain really wants love and connection. I think it's time we work together to change the definition of winning an argument from being right to being connected. That's winning. The bottom line is this: loneliness can be deadly. And the scary thing about that is that you can be lonely in a crowd. You and I both know you can be lonely in a family, at a party, and in a relationship with someone you care about, especially if you're arguing. After thousands of hours of counseling and in my own personal struggles of arguments and loneliness, I have become only more certain that our world is in desperate need of love and connection. If we could all work together to change this definition and move our arguments towards connection instead of being right, we can get more done and spread more love in our homes, with our families, with our workplaces, our communities, and in our world. So I'm going to close by asking you to not argue with me. Just give it a try. Thank you.